Thank you for joining us for our men's studies. The study we've been doing for the last few weeks is based upon a book called The Man God Uses by Henry and Tom Blackaby. And basically it just tries to challenge us to remember why we should be doing what we're doing as men and how to be strong in the faith and act the way that Jesus would want us to act. Again, thank you for joining us, and hopefully you'll be getting something out of it, and God's Word will be talking to you wherever you are. So we're recording. So last week we talked about Jonah because part of the thing we're talking about is what it is to be a man of God, and Jonah, in his even running from God, still was being a man of God when somebody asked him questions. It's like, yeah, I believe in this powerful, almighty God. Yeah, and he's the guy. Yeah, and I'm here because I disobeyed him, and he never stopped being a man of God, even when he was rebelling against doing what God said. Which is, it's like, I can't not tell you about God. I just don't have the ability to not be me. And he was angry about it. So that was part of why we went through that. So let's turn over to 2 Corinthians, and we're going to be in 5, and we're going to. I was trying to decide whether we should be, but we might as well do it. So we'll start at 5, just at 1, and we'll get Jake to read there.
Yeah, it's not loading. So.
It's not loading. Actually, let's just do Kurt. Kurt, read at 5. That way Jake can catch up. You look like you were still looking, too.
Skip me.
I did. Did you want to read there?
No, it's fine.
Okay. Go ahead, Kurt.
For we know that if the tent that is our earthly home is destroyed, we have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. For in this tent we groan, longing to put on our heavenly dwelling, if indeed by putting it on we may not be found naked. For while we are still in this tent we groan, being burdened, not that we would be unclothed, but that we would be further clothed, so that what is mortal may be swallowed up by life. He who has prepared us for this very thing is God, who has given us the Spirit as a guarantee. So we are always of good courage. We know that while we are at home in the body, we are away from the Lord, for we walk by faith, not by sight. Yes, we are of good courage, and we would rather be away from the body at home with the Lord.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Is that true for us as Christians? Do we think about, man, it'd be nice just to be with God right now and not here watching Doctor Who?
Depends on the day.
Right. Isn't it? It's this interesting thing of, it's why you're supposed to focus on spiritual things and godly things, is you're supposed to remember that's the real awesome part. And no. Being at my kid's birthday party is the awesome part. Yeah, for me, it's a good time. But we're supposed to look at it like this is. For we know that if our earthly house, this tent, is destroyed, we have a building from God, right? And it's giving us the metaphor of we got a tent and some shabby clothes here, and we got the building.
Yeah,
and the point.
Big bad wolf, that is the devil.
Yeah, exactly.
Pops and blows the devil.
That's right. Big House by Audio Adrenaline,
Well, we can play football.
And with a big yard. And we really should be more focused on this than we are. I should definitely be. I don't know where you guys are, but if we're thinking about the eternal heavenly things, a lot of the other stuff falls away. It gets replaced by, you know what, this is just a bad day. My car stopped running. I have bills I gotta pay. I got all that stuff. It's like, but you know what? What's the worst thing that can happen? There's some bad things, but I got God on my side, so it's great. And I don't do that. I very much. How do I fix this? My life is horrible, and it's really not.
Ever a question I will never ask myself. It's What's the worst that could happen?
You're knocking on wood over all over the place.
Yeah,
True.
I learned that lesson a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah.
What else you got for me?
Surely this is as bad as it can get.
Right,
He's
right.
like, no, it can get worse.
Thunder.
And don't call me Shirley.
Yeah. Well, and the idea of other fellowship, there's some reasons for fellowship that are the positive negative reasons, as in sometimes other people's negative becomes your positive to remember who God is and thank God for what you have that isn't what they have. So years ago, example, when we found out that Joey Bacon had cancer, I started praying for Joey Bacon. I started praying for his family. And I started thanking God that my children were healthy. You know, thank you, God. I mean, and that was a week that I was complaining that my van broke down. Yeah, break down my vans. I'm glad my vans are broken down and that my child doesn't have cancer today. And that's another reason why fellowship with Christians is great too, because then we get to converse with God about the struggle that they're having and pray for this boy and share with and become closer. Or Emily Grace, when Jessica Self's baby was born. You know, people coming alongside her, praying for her, thankful for that they didn't have the struggles that were going on. Some people sharing that they'd had the same struggles and the same thing happened. So it's just that coming alongside and remembering that God does give you stuff all the time and does protect you even on earth in certain ways and gives you providence and the imminence. Last week, Justin and I were talking about the imminence of God, which is, you know, Him being there to manage little bitty things to help us on the best path. So, any examples you guys can think of that you've been in that same position? No? Yeah?
None spring to mind. I know that they've occurred.
Yeah. And that's another thing that we do is they happen, and then we slowly forget how awesome it is that things happen in a timely way. And
I'm terrible at this, but I know that it's a great thing to do, so anyone who can do it really should. Is journaling when things happen.
Yeah.
Like when you pray about something, and then, like, 3 months later, that prayer gets answered. It's like you might 3 months later remember that you prayed for that thing, and now that prayer is answered. And if you do, then you should write that down and be like, saying, so you can reference it later. And so my wife is great at remembering things.
Yeah.
Like that. And I'm immaculate at forgetting them. And so, like, I'm like, oh, geez, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, hey, remember when that happened and we prayed for this and then this happened? And, she's got great examples of
Right.
us saying, well, if God wants us to do this, then He's just going to have to do this because we can't do this over here. And then, like, the next day, exactly what had to happen happened, and then everything falls. It's those things happen in my life regularly. And like 15 minutes later, I forget it.
Yeah, and that's why all these stories with the guys that do the same thing in here. When you're a kid and you're reading it, it's like, that guy's stupid. How can you possibly forget that God just brought fire down from heaven yesterday? And it's like, you know what? It's not fire from heaven, but 75 things fell in place so this happened.
Mm-hmm.
How can I not see that as a miracle?
Every time Alicia, starts off a conversation like, you remember when that, do you remember me? And I'm like, let me stop you right there.
Just tell me the story, because there's no remembering of anything, ever.
Don't try and coax me to remember something. Just go ahead and tell me what you're thinking.
Yeah, it's so true. And at one of my former churches, there was a guy who, he was the head postmaster guy for this area. That guy that's so buttoned up that it's unbelievable, that he micromanages everything, he knows everything going on in every place that there is. He was our I don't know what his actual title was, but he was our prayer tracker. And he had it's probably it was bigger than that. It would have been like an 8x12 wallboard of corkboard, and he had index cards, and we had weekly 2 prayer meetings weekly. And it was like a prayer time meeting that was like after church at one point, and then Wednesday they had like a prayer meeting. And he tracked fulfillment of prayer stuff. He would put it on computer, and then he'd also put it handwritten on the index cards, and you could see how he'd have something that the thing that was asked for didn't happen. If it was a positive thing, didn't happen, but something else happened that was better. You even had all those things that he would track for other people at the church. And it was neat because you could walk up to this board and just go, look what God does. But man, you got to have that person. And then that person's all in everybody's business too. That's the other weird thing is Richard was good at it. He was a guy that, you could see that somebody went and prayed for somebody in the hospital and this happened and then their air conditioner went out and then the next day somebody turned over a lease for another house and they got a totally different house and they had a place where they were better off. Those kind of things all the time. And it feels really good to realize, yeah, God is, how do I fix that?
They forgot the day that somebody invented corkboard.
Yeah.
That was important.
And spreadsheets.
Yeah, that's right. So I just wanted to get into this whole, we don't think with heavenly thoughts very often. Even on earthly, when things are fulfilled, we don't think of how they were earthly fulfilled with heavenly hands. So we just lose track of that. And that helps us a lot to be more on task. Anthony, can you read there at 5:9?
So whether we are at home or away, we make it our aim to please him. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each one may receive what is due for what he has done in the body, whether good or evil. Therefore, knowing the fear of the Lord, we persuade others. But what we are is known to God, and I hope it is all known also to your conscience. Okay, so let's just stop there. Again, I don't feel like I do this enough. I don't. My translation just says in 11, knowing therefore the terror of the Lord rather than the fear, which is a little bit scarier word, but it's the same thing. And do we have the concept of my aim is to please him all the time in our heads at all? I like pleasing you, God. You're my buddy. Jesus, you loved me enough to die for me. I think I'll maybe think about pleasing you today. Right? That's not the way we're supposed to be. Now, Paul's the example of the guy that went all in. Right? I mean, the guy went all in. Luther, another kind of guy who he was an all-in guy when he was straight just doing the Catholic faith. And when he translated into Reformation and started doing other stuff, he still was that guy that was crazy. I'm going to flog myself until I'm passing out every other night because I'm such a sinner, and you're pretty much not a real big sinner, dude. You're a pretty good guy. But I don't do this enough, and I don't have the fear of the Lord like I should. Every once in a while, I do. It's that moment of, wow, God is, he's God. But we're like what we talked about with the ants on the table. We're like, we don't even think about that guy over there when he could just squash us like a bug, right? We don't. And then every once in a while, I'm thinking, the ant goes, whoa, wait. This guy could totally take me out in a heartbeat. I need to run away. So I'm just trying to, a roundabout way, say we really need to reset, get on the right path of knowing that God is God, and all the things that he does, and focused on him and not anything else. And if you look at the great followers of God throughout the Bible, that's what they had. That's what they did. Joseph, I can't sin against God. It's one of my favorite phrases because it's like, sin against God, it's you and this chick and Potiphar. No, it's not. That doesn't matter. God's the only one that really this matters about. Why? God makes the rules. Right? Right now in our society, there are an awful lot of rules that are not God's rules that we're allowed to do.
and they're ethical. They're allowed. They're okay to our society. And what do Christians do? Society's rules for the most part, right? Your average, and I'm not saying this is not, I don't have plenty of these people, but your average 25-year-old is not a virgin thinking about the first girl he's going to be with ever in his life. That's God's rules. Praying about that one girl and being the good guy. No, I've had 9 before this. That's our society as a Christian. So what have we done? We've taken earthly rules and earthly things, and we focus on those, and we just completely forget about what God wants for us. That was just an easy example, so I just threw that one out there. All right, so let's turn over to Matthew 10. And if you bring up virginity and waiting for your wife, or praying for your wife and focusing on God instead of focusing on a wife to a non-Christian buddy, he just thinks you're a crazy person. You're just a crazy person. First of all, what do you want a wife for? Let's play the field for the next 15 years. That's the very first thing that they like. So, yeah, we've had that conversation with one of my buddies. It's pretty funny. All right, so they're at 10. Jake, go ahead and read there at 10 for us.
He called his 12 disciples to him and gave them authority to drive out evil spirits and to heal every disease and sickness. These are the names of the 12 apostles. First, Simon, who is called Peter, and his brother Andrew, James, son of Zebedee.
Zebedee?
Zebedee.
Is it Zebedee?
Yes.
Yeah.
And his brother John, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew the tax collector, James, son of... I'm not going to try those two.
It's all good. We don't really need the names as much as saying that they're there.
Yeah. Simon the Zealot, Judas Iscariot, butchered that, who betrayed him.
Okay, first of all,
Judas the scariest.
Wouldn't it be better? Wouldn't it be better, to be the guy that doesn't have to have the extra added to the back of your name? Matthew, the tax collector. The poor guy. Was I not a good guy? And what's funny is this is in Matthew's book. Matthew, the tax collector. Just wanted to point out to everybody, tax collector. And then Judas, the one who betrayed. Okay, we know.
Spoilers.
Yeah, spoiler, you're totally giving it away before we get there. All right, so keep going there.
These 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions. Do not go among the Gentiles or enter any town of the Samaritans. Go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. As you go, preach this message. The kingdom of heaven is near. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you have received, freely you give. Do not take along any gold or silver or copper in your belts. Take no bag for the journey, or extra tunic, or sandals, or a staff. For the worker is worth his keep. Whatever town or village you enter, search for some worthy person there, and stay at his house until you leave. As you enter the home, give it your greeting. If the home is deserving, let your peace rest on it. If it is not, let your peace return to you. If someone will not welcome you or listen to your words, shake the dust off your feet when you leave that home or town. I tell you the truth, it will be more bearable for Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than for that town.
Okay, Rick, go ahead and read there.
I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. Be on your guard. You will be handed over to the local councils and be flogged in the synagogues. On my account, you will be brought before governors and kings as witnesses to them and to the Gentiles. But when they arrest you, do not worry about what to say or how to say it. At that time, you will be given what to say, for it will not be you speaking, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. Brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child. Children will rebel against their parents and have them put to death. You will be hated by everyone because of me, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. When you are persecuted in one place, flee to another. Truly I tell you, you will not finish going through the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes.
Okay, wait. Let's pause there for a second. Does this sound like a very Joel Osteen kind of future in church? Right? Now, there's lots of people that says, well, these are the apostles. This isn't me. I don't have to do any of this because this is to the apostles.
Those people are fools.
Yeah. I think you're missing the point if you think that that's... I mean, even if just one of these is true for you as a Christian, all the other things happen because you're a Christian. And as a Christian, you're supposed to share the good news. 100% of them. And it points out when you share the good news, people don't like you. People are going to hate you. They're going to flog you in the streets. This is what's supposed to happen.
My
And
delivery is really soft.
yeah, my delivery.
I still get
I still get
in trouble.
in trouble. I still get in problems. And it also gives you a great example of. I know many missionary friends that this was one of the ones that they had to study. This group of verses, because it gets into bivocational, get a job, live with a family that's a good family that helps you establish, and if they're not a good family and they're bad, get out of that house and reset. It's a step by step. This is the little playbook of being a missionary. That's all it is. And how bad's it going to be? It's not, oh, we get to live in the biggest house in the most beautiful place and we get to just talk to the people on our street. No, that's not what it says. It says work a job and be ready to get beaten because you're opening your mouth so much. I don't want to do that. Yeah, like Paul. It's an example of Paul. We definitely lose sight of this in Christian churches and in Christian homes. That this is what our lives are supposed to be more like than just happiness and puppies and roses. Right? Okay. Kurt, go ahead.
I'm curious. So, I don't know if I'm so much curious. I'm coaxing a response. You reference people that says this is about the apostles. You believe that the apostles died with the apostles,
Right.
because that's a not uncommon belief. That's a common teaching
Right.
going on. That all that stuff stopped when the last apostle died, the last of the 12 or whatever.
Yeah. When John died, it was done.
Yeah.
Which is funny, though, because there's some people out there that don't believe John ever died. So, hey, we're still doing it. Okay, sorry.
But, I mean, it's like, but no one says that in the book. That's not in there anywhere.
Yeah. It doesn't say rule ends here.
Yeah.
Right. And the little footnote thing that's sitting right here that says the 12 apostles are instructed, right? Kind of is leading towards it's a 12 apostle thing. Well, where does that come from? That's just some guy who put it in there to help us have reference to what that chapter's about. So, is this one of those, this is kind of against that whole don't add anything to the Bible thing? I don't think so. I mean, it's discernment and being able to tell. But still, people can slowly change what things mean and turn into, well, if I'm not an apostle, I'm blah, 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 blah.
Verse 5 says these 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions.
Yeah, it said out and commanded them, saying, yeah.
But it might be in a different book. He also sends out 70 somewhere else.
Yeah, and then
I
there's...
think earlier than this.
Yeah, and then when he does the Great Commission, it's however many that was. So are we changing the rules every time? So this 70 had a certain set of rules, and these 30, and people argue that pretty heavily. There's people of all those lots of different denominations have different beliefs about Christian denominations, about what everyone's supposed to do, and whether or not it's different.
Well, maybe he sent out 70, and the only people who were willing to go again were 12.
Yeah, it's very true. Very true. So let's read there let's continue reading there, and perfect timing. He bailed on us. See you later, brother. He's like, Anthony, go ahead and read. Oh, never mind. See you later, babe. I'll read there at 24. A disciple is not above his teacher, nor a servant above his master. It is enough for a disciple that he be like his teacher, and a servant like his master. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebub, how much more will they call those of his household? Therefore do not fear them, for there is nothing covered that will not be revealed, and hidden that will not be known. Whatever I tell you in the dark, speak in the light, and what you hear in the ear, preach on the housetops. And do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a copper coin, and not one of them falls to the ground apart from your Father's will? But the very hairs of your head are numbered. Do not fear, therefore, you are of more value than many sparrows. Therefore, whoever confesses me before men, him I will also confess before my Father who is in heaven. But whoever denies me before men, him I will also deny before my Father who is in heaven. Do not think I came to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's enemies will be those of his own household. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he who does not take his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. He who finds his life will lose it, and he who loses his life for my sake will find it. He who receives you receives me, and he who receives me receives him who sent me. He who receives a prophet in the name of a prophet shall receive a prophet's reward, and all who receives a righteous man in the name of the righteous man shall receive a righteous man's reward. And those who gives one of these little ones only a cup of cold water in the name of a disciple, assuredly I say to you, he shall by no means lose his reward. I almost feel like this should be like when the towers fell and they showed the video every day, all day, over and over and over. This should be a group of verses that we read pretty darn regularly to get reminded. Do you love your kid more than you love God? Do you focus more on your wife than you do on God? Do you focus more on your job than you do on God? I mean, you got to hope. Yeah, pretty regularly. Man, I really stink at doing this Christian thing, right? It should be you and God, you and your spouse, you and your children, in that order. That's the way it's supposed to work. And then the very next thing is a servant to all others. And you're not supposed to think of yourself first anywhere in there. You're supposed to think of where your walk is between you and God. And everything else is servant. Forget that. You know, I mean, that's really who we are. For me. It may not be any of you. Now, I have been sitting across the table from different people here, and it's people that are like, no, that's who I am. And I've believed them. But, you know, if we all think about somebody like Justin, right? I think Justin is trying to focus his family on God, and that Justin would love the Lord and focus on the Lord and try to do these things. But man, he loves his wife an awful lot. And he loves those kids an awful lot. And we're made to. And that's part of the sacrifice for the relationship with God. It's part of the thing is, look at what I've given you. And now remember, love me first before all of that. Oh, no.
Well, I think it's important for people to remember that he's not asking us to give all of our love and devotion to him.
Right.
He's not telling us not to love
Right.
our wives and our kids and, you know, side chicks.
Yeah, side chicks. Wow.
I'm joking.
But yeah, it's very much
But just to love him first.
right. And we often do that too, where, you know, that's where I was going to go to, was I was going to use the reference of the police and the blacks thing that's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
About if you do this, you can't do this.
Yeah.
They're not exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
But also we think very exclusively as people in the flesh that if I focus on my wife, that means I'm not focusing. No. God has lots of verses about how to worship and to show true Christianity to God. You're a servant to that woman. That's part of their marriage relationship that God set up. So you're doing both. It's a double win. It's not a give one or the other. And this group of verses is 100% solid on your life may stink. It may be the worst thing in the world. And be ready for it and love it. Right? That's what this group of verses is. And that God is right there paying attention to you the whole time. He's 100%, which is kind of crazy that you can say this, but God's the only one who can do this. I can give 100% of my attention to 100% of the universe. All the time. I pay attention to the hairs on the head and the very sparrows, right? It's a great statement of, I'm focused on you, James Luce, right now, and what's the best thing in the world for you and what can help you grow closer to me 100% of the time, and help you in every other way possible 100% of the time. And I'm like, I'm there for you, God. Oh, just a second, my show's on. Right? Right? And so that's why I like this book, because it gives you just simple places to go to get reminded. The man that God used, this is one of the ones that we use in the prison ministry, and it's what we've been using, and I've been referencing as we go through and adding some things to it. But it's so much simpler when you know where to look again to get reminded of just how off the path you are. And for me, it helps me, right? If it's not helping you guys, let me know. But for me, it helps me to go, man, I'm really missing the mark on this stuff. I'm going to go watch some Joel Osteen videos, because those are much easier to stomach. It's much happier. I used to lose him as a rapper. I can't wait till somebody shares that with him somewhere. He's like, man, why do you guys pick on me all the time?
Everyone picks on him all the time.
So, any thoughts, guys? And then
I'll just cry into my monogram towels in one of my 7 bathrooms. I think I'll be okay.
Because some guy in Wichita
doesn't like what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You guys have any input on that too, or you find yourself in that same place?
Yeah, exactly.
Wichita, I wasn't aware they built a village in Wichita.
My servant's dog quarters are there. It's so wrong. So wrong.
I live that. I used to the guy described here is like who I was for a while, and then I had more kids and a lot less money, and life is hard and things are terrible a lot, and that stuff is supposed to sort of turn us toward him, but instead it sort of, it's just kind of like, what do I do about this?
Yeah.
God doesn't say, hey, sit around and wait for me to fix everything for you.
Yeah.
And striking the balance between God's provision and my involvement in that situation is like incredibly difficult to figure out.
Yeah.
The balance. Like how much of this is me, how much of this is him, because I can't just check out and wait for him to fix everything. That's not what he says. It's in there somewhere. I'm not sure where.
Well, and he goes back to the patience and kind. If you go back to the Old Testament, or if you go to any of the stories of people when they're really messing up, he gives you an awful lot of time. He gives you it's not like he goes, stomp you out right now because you messed up here. It's a lot of, okay, I'm going to be patient with you, and I'm way more patient than anybody else you know.
I give myself, and probably him, very little time.
Right.
It's like everything is like, everything that's happening right now is the rest of my life is falling apart right now.
Right.
It's like the entire future hinges on what I'm having for breakfast today.
Yes.
It's like, if I don't eat my breakfast, I don't get my energy for work, and then I get fired, and then my family starves to death, and then
Yes. I concur wholeheartedly.
But I need to leave.
Yep.
We all need to go. Go run the camera.
This study was just one of many that takes place here at Glenville. Please feel free to look through our YouTube channel and see all the other studies that we do. We have several different ministries that try to reach different types of groups and demographics, and hopefully you'll find something that fits what you need, and God will speak to you through those.